If you were to ask me what my favorite N64 game of all time was, I'd probably say Paper Mario. I have a thing for RPGs because their pace doesn't feel as quick as a platformer, so I tend to prefer them. And a character I never thought would be good in an RPG, but learned does quite well, is Mario himself. He somehow does RPGs as well as he does platformers by combining the two somehow. That being said, I just saw a list about someone's favorite Paper Mario series bosses, but I haven't played Thousand Year Door, so I don't feel right doing a list of all the bosses. I've played a little bit of Super Paper Mario. I need to beat that game, and I've obviously played the original, and I've played Sticker Star, which, unlike most people on the planet, actually like. And since this is my channel, that means I have the best taste. So, meh. But who are my favorite bosses? A couple of rules for this list. Pieces of bosses don't count, obviously. And I'm not counting... And what I mean is, Tubba Blubba and Tubba Blubba's Heart are one boss, basically. Also, the Shy Guy armies and all that with General Guy would be one boss. This isn't spoilers, this is just me saying certain things. I'm also not counting bosses that turn into enemies later on, because they're not a boss anymore. So there might be some mini bosses, and there are definitely going to be a couple of the big bosses here. I'm going to be taking into account the battle itself, the build-up, and character, as well as as well as the payoff, what's the aftermath of the battle like. Obviously, ease or difficulty of beating and how fair it felt. And I'll give you my personal strategies on how to beat these bosses. Also, I'm not putting in the final boss, because that's a little different. The final boss, isn't my favorite in this game, I'll be honest. That seems a little unfair. So, unfortunately, Bowser will not be making any appearances on this list. I'm basically talking about his little minions. So, and henchmen that are mini-bosses before the boss don't count either. So, the red and blue Goomba Bros are not going to be on this list. So, with that being said, let's check out 10 and go from there. This is a type of boss I call the rival antagonist boss. They're the ones that follow you throughout the entire game just to annoy you and give you a bit of a fight as well as some XP. Meet Junior Troopa. Junior Troopa is this little baby Koopa Troopa who wants to kick your butt for daring to go into his playground. That is his whole motivation. He is the local bully, basically. And he thinks he can take on Mario. Now, this kid is pretty tough. His first ability is he can go into his shell. I believe he has no ability in his first battle when you first meet him, which is when you're fighting him alone. But he's, basically a good little introductory boss, and he does a little bit of damage to you. And you don't have the timed hits yet, so, you kind of sweat a little bit. Second time you meet him, he closes up his shell. He uses his shell to an advantage, meaning you can't do as much damage, so you're going to have to think of ways of getting past that, say, the Quake Hammer. His third form, he decides to grow wings, which he forgets at one point and loses half his health, but I'll get into that. His wings make it so he kind of forgot Mario's jumping ability, because Mario can jump on flying animals, obviously. But for some of your heavier hitters at that point, like, say, Cooper, or I think, who else do you have at this point? Because I think you have, 3 members. Or Bombette. Bombette's the other one I'm thinking of. Or Bombette. you can't really hit him. Which is a shame because the bomb attack does quite a lot of damage. Of course, then he counters your jumping ability by putting a spike on his head while still flying. Now you can't touch him with anything except throwing a hammer. Or shooting a shell at him with parry carry. After that, he learns magic. Why didn't he keep the pointy thing, the close-up shell, and the wings with the wand? I don't know. So, he learns magic and basically tries to zap you. After that, his final entrance is in the final boss, the Koopa Castle. And he switches between the forms to try to throw you off. So you have to keep switching your strategy. And if you didn't put the right badges on right before the fight, you're kind of stuck. You can't switch badges out at this point. So if you were ready for one thing, you basically get your butt kicked by another. That being said, the reason he's number 10 is because he's not as smart as he thinks he is. Like, yeah, he comes up with some clever little ideas, but he doesn't combine them well enough, and he does lose half his HP after Yoshi's Island. You see him after, like, at the beginning or the end of every chapter, depending, and he's usually an optional boss for the most part. Well, no, he's never an optional boss. Never mind. You're forced to fight him every time. Sorry. You are forced to fight him every time. And the problem is that he does things like he'll swim back and forth between the Mushroom Kingdom and Yoshi Island when he can grow wings. And then he forgets he can grow wings. And then realizes he forgot and feels like a complete idiot. So he's somewhat self-aware, but he is a funny little character. And you see his body and you can just keep hitting it or talking to it and it'll just be like, "Argh!" You know, because you beat the snot out of him. And he is persistent. And when he grows up, he's probably going to be a nightmare to deal with. But until then, he's still fairly harmless. But he's a fun boss and kind of adds a little something to the game. Number 9 is Cammy Koopa, Bowser's right-hand woman. Yes, she's a boss. For those that don't know, at the end of the game, you fight Bowser, but he is pumping up the Star Rod to ridiculous levels in a special arena built for it, so you can't shoot it down with an ability called the Star Beam. Peach and her partner Twink now have to do something to help Mario, because if he doesn't, Mario's dead, and game over. Now, Peach doesn't unfortunately fight like she does in the, in my favorite game, Mario RPG 7 Stars, but Twink does and keeps trying to hit her. It's a story battle, but it's a very good story battle. Twink just goes, bink, while Cammy's doing a ton of damage dropping blocks on his head. Not aiming for Peach, because I'm guessing Bowser would kill her for that one. So Peach does focus, an ability you have too, but she's basically giving some of her strength to Twink, so they start evening up. Then it gets to the point where Cammy can't do any damage, and Twink's the one punching her. Now, Cammy throughout the game is the one causing all these little problems and putting things to cause trouble for you. But just that satisfaction of beating this smug, nasty little creature to oblivion with a little tiny piece of glitter, as she calls him, as she calls Twink, is just too much fun. I just kind of wish that the battle was longer. She has an excellent build-up, and obviously it's the final battle. Very good payoff. You get the stronger version of the Star Beam, the Peach Beam, to use against Bowser. But that being said, her boss battle itself, if it wasn't for the fact it was very story important and it felt kind of cool that you did get to fight her, because I would have been kind of annoyed if you didn't, at least in some way. It's kind of meh. I would have preferred to have been able to use like an ability of Peach's to actually attack her like Mario can. But what you gonna do? Number 8 is what I think has the worst build-up. Not terrible, but there's very little build-up, and I was expecting something completely different. So, this is Lava Piranha, the boss of Yoshi's Island. It lives in a volcano. It's a very cool design and it has two forms, so it's certainly not a bad boss battle. One form is just a basic piranha plant that lives in lava with two little heads, so it's basically a hydra. And the second form, it basically sets itself on fire while making you think it's dead. I'm not kidding. It dies, it gives you experience, it slips into the lava, and you're thinking, yay, I won, here comes the star, yay, and it comes back badder than ever, and you just kind of sit there going, well, this sucks. And the first time I saw it, because I didn't know it did that, I kind of just took one look at that and went, oh. Oh, this thing's not going to play fair. And it's just a big surprise. So the boss battle itself is very surprising. But you don't get a lot of, oh, beware the... You don't get that build-up. Like, there are piranha plants on the island, and this is, like, the only place you really see them. But that's because this is a jungle setting for the most part, so... The only real build-up you get is a piranha plant that keeps popping up in the dungeon itself, going, alert, alert, warn the boss, like a robot or something. So... It gives you an idea that they're all connected. It gives you a little insight into how piranha plants work in the Mario universe, but was kind of not a great build-up, but the payoff made up for it. Because, well, when you finally defeat it, after it pretty much makes you go, oh, you got a second form, and you just played a nasty little joke on me. It has a very weird speech pattern, too. And this is another reason why I'll get to the payoff in a minute, because the payoff is basically the entire volcano is erupting and you have to run for your life. And you fly out on the back of a star and get treasure, and it's a lot of fun. But the thing about it is, every boss in the game, you kind of heard about them, you kind of knew about them. There's like one other exception, but even then you heard about them a little sooner than right at the dungeon, essentially. Like, Tubba Blubba, you know, the ghosts are talking about, Tubba Blubba's eating us. Even the character that joins you at that point goes, you have to help us get rid of Tubba Blubba and we'll give you the star, essentially. The Koopa Bros, they trick you at the beginning of the game as Toad's blocking your path, and you see them. The only other time Lava Piranha is mentioned as, oh, beware the Lava Piranha, is when Peach gets the information from the big Shy Guy. I mean, technically the Shy Guys didn't mention General Guy either, but you knew there had to be a lead Shy Guy somewhere, because they were all Shy Guys in that damn place. There were no other enemies in there, unless you ask Cammy for a couple. So, that being said, you kind of just assume there'd be some form of lead Shy Guy or something leading the Shy Guys in the toy box. But except for Gourmet Guy's warning in the castle and the fact that there's something popping up going alert, alert, and I think Twink tells you like there's a creature in a volcano that you have to watch out for, you don't really get a lot of build up to this thing. Like, even one of my higher up ones is, it looks like it doesn't have a build up, but it's actually a very mysterious, creepy build up. Like, even the dungeon itself feels like it's building up to this thing. And the dungeon does kind of build up to it, because it's a freaking lava pit. It's fire everywhere. You can't go anywhere without jumping into lava half the time. But the build up wasn't that great for my poor little lava piranha. But the boss fight itself was kind of fun once you figured out what to do, because the first time I met up with that thing, he was my hardest boss to deal with. But it was, when you figured out what to do, and the fact that you can actually disable it by putting out the fires was kind of useful. So it did have a way to kind of cheap it out, and I did tend to do that by either using, I always put like ice badges on, or I had Sushi ready aim fire at it. But if you didn't do that, it had some brutal attacks. I also always used the chill out ability that one of the Star Spirits had once I got it, just to kind of make it so I could live a little bit longer. Because that just made things so much easier, and I did that on a lot of enemies. But yeah, poor little lava piranha. What you gonna do? Build up was terrible, but the boss fight itself and the payoff were amazing. So it just needed a better build up, really. And it would have jumped to number 1 on the list, because also look at it. And it's like such a happy boss. Like, I'm gonna eat you, basically. I like that. Very simple, very to the point. Like, no, you can't have my Star Spirit. We like our Star Spirit. Like, it's like keeping it as a pet or something. It's weirdly cute, I guess. So, that's Lava Piranha. This boss didn't get a lot of build-up, but compared to Lava Piranha, it basically has a pretty even amount of build-up boss fight payoff when it comes to actually story elements. This is the Goomba King, or as he seems to be listed as the Goom Boss. He's the actual tutorial boss you fight. He has his 2 little minions, red and blue, who again, I didn't say were going to be on the list, because they're kind of like, they attack you first in the forest and mock you. But his fight is interesting, because one, the 2 little Goombas kind of still have the damage from when you fought them, like they healed up a little bit, but they're in bad shape. And you have this big, doofy looking, I guess he was a little Goomba and he just wanted to be as big as possible, so Bowser made him big. Doofy looking, thinks he's smarter than he is. I hear him with like this like haughty British accent, like, what ho? Like, wahaha, I'm no ordinary Goomba. I am Goombas, the great Goomba, the grand poobah of Goombas, like something like that. I can just hear that voice. And he's just pure comedy gold. And he interesting stands under a, get this, a Goom Nut tree. So you can basically make him get whacked in the head by a giant Goom Nut and kill off his 2 little minions, making the fight easier. But you have to see it. It doesn't automatically point it out to you, and it doesn't give you that hint in game. You have to figure it out yourself, but it's simple to figure out if you just move the cursor around. Very basic boss, just you jump on his head, but he's the first boss. He's the one you deal with in reality. Like, as the first boss with a partner in reality that isn't Junior Troopa. But he is, like, he has these doofy looking eyes, and obviously the red and blue Goombas tell you about him, like, the Goom Boss isn't gonna let you through. And you kind of know that when somebody mentions the bridge to the town you're supposed to go to, you know something is probably going to be blocking it. But he doesn't just block it, no. He turned it into his castle. He basically took it, rearranged it, and turned it into his castle. But he kept the mechanism to turn it into a bridge for some bizarre reason. I'm guessing in case he wanted to invade the Mushroom Kingdom in the name of Bowser. And even better, he's not fully stupid, but he has that problem of the henchmen sometimes do a derp and it affects him. Because he says, did you hide the switch? Since you can't get into the castle in any way, shape, or form. Like, he's smart enough to go in after the battle and lock the door. Not a bad plan. So, one of the Goombas goes, yes, I hid it outside in the bushes. he immediately goes, "You know Mario can find it in the bushes, right?" And too little too late, tries to get you to think, oh, I shouldn't push that switch because it might hurt me, even though you're not going to believe him. And you send him flying like Team Rocket. But it is a funny battle, and it has a lot of character to it for what it is. It's simple, and I don't expect much from it, but it was very cute. There is one other factor I forgot to mention in the game for dealing with like how I'm going to be ranking these bosses. The music. This one, I'm counting him as a boss because he technically is the boss of the dojo, and he is a boss fight. You fight him 3 times, and he gets stronger each time. You don't get much for it, and he's... The diploma isn't really worth it, but I like doing it for the sake of, I think you do get experience for it. So... I fight him mainly for the experience and to practice fighting and to hear the music. He has the best boss music in the entire game. Like, I will stop in the middle of the battle and just start jamming out, like bouncing around, and he's considered the super boss of the game. And you fight him 3 times, and you fight his 2 cronies first, obviously. He kind of goes like Super Saiyan on you at some point, because why not? But the thing is, there's not a lot of build-up. Like, he lives in the dojo. That's pretty much it. You know he's a martial arts master. You know he's going to be a tough boss. Okay, gotcha. And the payoff obviously isn't very good. The boss fight itself is pretty interesting in that it is a martial artist, so it feels a bit like a 2-on-1 Street Fighter match, only with RPG instead of going at him like at the same time. But it is a fun boss battle, and it has the best music in the game, so he's pretty high on the list. One boss has almost as good music, a couple of them do, but his is the best. It's just hands down the best. If Woody Allen was a frickin' pharaoh in a Mario game, this is it. I swear to God. Now, I was complaining about dungeon buildup in Lava Piranha, but that's because, again, it was kind of a bad buildup in that it was just the guard alert, alert. This one, the boss is actually talking to you as if he's a ghost in the frickin' game. First you get built up about the temple itself, which I'm fine with. So you have to find the temple going through, I think, my least favorite area in all of the game, the desert. Only because there are so many enemies, and I will not explore that area until I have the bump attack badge, just so I don't die. Because usually by then I'm leveled up enough that I won't have to fight anything. Although it's really annoying because then I want to fight everything for a different reason, in that the creatures in the desert drop some of the better healing items at the time, which are the fruits. So, nice little catch-22 there. But this boss has the craziest personality, not to mention the fact that, again, his build-up in the game is in the temple itself. He starts... First of all, the ruins are hidden, so you have to find them. And it's mentioned that something evil took them over. So, here's the evil that took them over. But he starts doing like, ooh, get out now, like doing all that. But every so often, instead of doing like the creepy voice, like they have a quote, it's like, when you first meet up, it's like, you ignored all those scary warnings. Don't you have any common sense to get scared and run away? What's wrong with you? Like, he literally goes normal voice, and I keep hearing it as like Woody Allen in my head. So I just sit there, like, laughing, like, oh my god, this is what I'm fighting. This is either going to be hilarious or hard. And it's not an easy boss battle. No, it is not an easy boss battle at all, because he's on another level. So you can't really reach him. Like, you can jump on him, and you can throw hammers at him, and that's about it. You can shoot parry carry at him. And he's also summoning chain chomps, meaning you now have like this thing made of steel that you're gonna have to blow up just to get through the defenses, or use your quake hammer, which isn't gonna hit him, and hope for the best. He does sometimes knock himself off the platform, and when he does that, you just pound on him basically. And he heals himself. So he's not an easy boss battle, but he's not too annoying once you know what you're doing. So, and once he's dead, you get the satisfaction of seeing his own chain chomp chase him out of the room trying to eat him. I love that. I'll actually say this. This is the most unique boss in the entire game. Why? Well, a few reasons. One, he's got the best build-up. If you want a boss that is built up amazingly well in this game, this is it, because you're told by the first character that you're going to team up with in this section, which is Lady Bo, he's eating ghosts, I need your help. Then you go into a ghost village where they say, Tubba Blubber is eating ghosts, we need your help. And you see it. You see him pick up a ghost and gulp it down. Then you have to go through his castle with all kinds of security systems sneaking around. This is a stealth mission, but not an annoying one. And meanwhile, you hear that he's invincible. You can't beat him. And if you get into a fight with him before you find the secret, you basically can't beat him. He is immune to damage. He will kill you, and you better run. So you're at a point where you have to deal with this big invincible thing, and you have no clue how. And the only way you're going to figure it out is to go through his house, hope he doesn't find you, and pray he doesn't eat you. And just, it's ridiculous. It's scary. And you find out why he's doing this. Apparently, before he got super powerful, the boos were torturing him. They like to spook him. They like to scare him. They like to make him scream and be horrified. So, he kind of has every right to be, taking it out on the boos. He's pissed off at him. He's getting a little revenge. And you kind of think back after he eats a boo that they're more trapped in his stomach than actually dead, because they're already dead. And they do that at the end of the fight. He spits them out. The final battle, I should say. That being said, again, you hear about he has a weak point, but nobody knows what it is. So, when you find this key that talks and apparently decides to wake him up, which was not fun, you have to get out of that mansion, meaning you gotta run. Just don't look back, run. I use the speedy spin as much as possible. I just keep going and going and going, and I'm looking for the security things hey, can you grab me now and kick me out of that? And they're all broken, so you don't even get that. And you just book it out of there. And all the boos are basically holding the door to let you get away so you can get to where you think the key is going to fit, which is, the key tells you, in the windmill. You go to the windmill. You go past all these hyper Goombas, which are really annoying, to Tubba Blubber's heart. Yes, you have to fight Tubba Blubber's heart. Slightly disturbing because it shoots blood vessels at you. Blood cells, I should say. Blood cells. I just look at it and go, well, okay. And it accuses you of having somebody say that's what his weak point is. Which even I'm sitting there going, I knew you were a weak point. I didn't expect this one. This is gross. How is he still alive? Of course, when they reunite, Tubba Blubba thinks he's stronger than ever, and it turns out the opposite is true. He's as weak as he once was. So he gives up and spits out the booze, and even Lady Bo says, I'm gonna let the booze know to lay off him. We're not ashamed of what we did, but yeah, we might have pushed him just a little too far if this happened. So it's a pretty good resolution in the end. You gotta feel bad for the poor little guy, but okay, maybe not little. But he's definitely one of the most, he's probably the best built of the boss fights. It was just fun. And it was like, the whole thing was basically a boss fight. It was just there were parts that were more platforming than others. So it felt like a very long boss battle in a weird way. But wow. I never want to meet anything like that again. We're in the top 3, and here is number 3. This one I think has the best personality because you see them in the background and they kind of come down and they're kind of like, hey, who are you? And you can like completely skip this battle. You can kind of go, I'm Luigi, I'm Princess Peach, or you just tell the truth and I'm Mario. If they won't believe Peach and they'll be annoyed with you, they'll believe you're Luigi. And fight if they are Mario. If you say you're Mario. So they're basically a bounty hunter that Bowser told them, you know, I'm going to pay you, just keep Mario away, essentially keep him from crossing the bridge. Now, Buzzar, people aren't sure if they're male or female in the game because he's sitting on a pile of eggs. The boss battle itself is really annoying because it's wind and it's picking you up and you're not that high level compared to normal. Like, if you keep like lying, you can go past them, but I just tend to fight them on the first shot to kind of get away from him and not have to do it anymore. And I love the fact it speaks in like a Texan accent. You know, you're not going anywhere. It's so cowboyish, which fits with the whole area they're in, which is like this dusty gulch type area, basically a canyon before you go into the more Egyptian like desert. But Buzzer is male. He's just a good dad. That's another thing I like about the character. He's a good dad. He's like watching over his eggs, and you even see the eggs hatch at the end of the game. But the build-up is the better part. The payoff isn't that great, because he just kind of goes, I got whooped, and falls away, and you can go past. Yay. And the boss battle is so freaking annoying. But I love the personality, and I love the design. I like Birds of Prey like that in-game. So... And the fact that he's a good dad is kind of cute. So I had to give Buzzer part of the top 3 spots. One of them. Remember how I mentioned that in the Shy Guys toy box, you didn't really get an idea of who ran it, but you knew it had to be a Shy Guy? Meet General Guy. Oh my god. This dude is the most vocal Shy Guy, as in he can talk. Very few of them actually do talk English. He is basically the bravest. He has a toy tank, and he's like this little military guy. And he sends wave after wave of different types of Shy Guys at you at first, which is freaking hilarious. And this is where Chill Out would have come in handy, but it was like right before you got it. And then he comes after you with a lightning tank that you can destroy the light bulb, thankfully. And you have to find a way to get through it. And I keep thinking, like, hearing him like a general, like a drill sergeant almost. like, oh god, what's the name of the one that was in Full Metal Jacket that also had that TV show on History Channel about weapons of war? He's like, to me, he sounds like that. It's just so funny to me. And yet his aesthetic fits the theme. He's in a toy box. He has a toy tank. He's just like a toy soldier, essentially. So it feels almost like you're playing that game with a child who's like, nah, I got this and this and this, and you can't beat me until you finally get them to give up. So it's kind of whimsical in a weird way. And the music, I do like military music, but it kind of goes from this military to this like tropical samba beat. So it's very silly. It's just a fun, silly little battle, and once you beat them, it's really satisfying, and you just see the tank fall apart and General Guy just get ejected and land and just completely knocked out. And the Elva Shy Guy is just going, yeah, and scattering, and it's like the most adorable little thing ever, and I feel so bad, but I feel so good. So that's why I really like this battle a lot. He's so cute! You are probably told the whole story about this creature by one of Merlin's relatives. But because the Merle family does not know how to shorten a story to here's actually what happened and gives you every boring detail, you sleep through it. Which, while funny, is a little annoying too. Because you find out that this guy took over a palace many, many years ago. Like, this place is an archaeological find of the century. This is the Crystal King of the Ice Palace. This place is creepy. This place feels alone, frightening. It is probably the furthest removed from your starting point. There are 2 towns in between this and between this palace and your starting point. And the 2 towns are close together, but after that you have to traverse a huge mountain full of very dangerous enemies. Face statues with deadly riddles and deadly traps. The music in the palace is haunting, and the battle music is just as frightening, and you feel like it's cold. You may not have a choice. You may die. He'll freeze you in place. He has 3 minions. He can split himself in 3. This is a very good boss, and he has this very chilling build-up just from the atmosphere around him. He has my second favorite boss music in the game, as you could probably guess. And if you saw something like that in real life, you'd probably run screaming, because all he is clothing and eyes. And it's creepy. When I first saw this battle, when I first encountered this boss battle, like, I knew I had to fight something ice-themed. I was in an ice area. And I had just gotten out of a fire area before. But here it is, this creepy-looking ghost, basically, who's been holding on to a dead kingdom for who knows how many thousands of years. And even the end of the game tells you that the Crystal Palace, or Ice Palace, is an archaeological find. Nobody knew where this place was or could get to this place for so long, because Colorado's interested in it. And even the palace itself is full of illusions and tricks, and you have to pay attention to what you're doing and pay attention to everything in your area, your surroundings. I think this was the area that actually made me get a hint book, because I got completely lost. Yay! But he is probably one of the most chilling and nasty bosses. And he's the second to last boss before Bowser. Like, you get the last Star Spirit from him. And beating him makes you feel like, weirdly enough, you didn't change anything. Like in all the other ones, hey, you got rid of the demon in the tomb. That's awesome. And Mufasa can, do with what he pleases, and people can explore it and blah, blah, blah. Oh, hey, you stopped the lava thing and you caused an eruption. Whee! Hey, you saved the ghost from Tub of Blubber. Or you got rid of the Shy Guys from the town. Or you got through the Goom boss. You felt like you did something aside from beat the boss. There was, except for the Star Spirit, no real reason for you to go up that mountain. Nobody was going to gain anything from you defeating the Crystal King. He wasn't haunting the towns as you knew, so you don't really feel that sense of accomplishment. What you feel is, okay, I got the Star Spirit, now what? You know, you do go to the end of the game and you know, go up to Bowser's Castle and all that. You prep for the final battle. But there's this weird feeling of emptiness throughout the entire Ice Palace. Like, as I was playing it, I talk to myself when I play games. That's why I started doing Let's Plays, because it was an excuse for me to talk to myself. But in this case, I didn't speak a word. Or if I did, it was pure whisper. Because it was just so cold. Funny how that works. So, there you have it. My top 10 favorite bosses in Paper Mario. Kind of an oddball list, but I figured, why not? I haven't done a top 10 in a long time. So, I'll catch you guys later.